It's a great day to be in real estate. This is Duane Beisner. Have you missed me? Haven't been doing many videos lately. Just been out of town on a regional connection seminar for ERA and some other things going on. But anyway, it's a great day to be in real estate. Duane Beisner, sales manager and sales representative for ERA. For the quote of the day, he who asks questions may be a fool for 5 minutes. He who never asks a question remains a fool forever. For the joke of the day, a couple, desperate to conceive a child, went to their priest and asked him to pray for them. "I'm going to go on a sabbatical to Rome," he replied, "and while I'm there, I'll light a candle for you." When the priest returned 3 years later, he went to the couple's house and found the wife pregnant, busily attending to 2 sets of twins. Elated, the priest asked her where her husband was so he could congratulate him. "He's gone to Rome to blow that candle out," came the harried reply. Now, for the business tip of the day, no business can succeed without sales. Before you start your own business, learn something about selling and marketing. Think about it. For the Darwin Award of the day in Washington, 2010, 2 out-of-town race car crewmen were at a machine shop that builds and services race cars when they dreamed up an unusual thrill ride. Fire Chief Dean Klepler reported that on that Sunday evening, the men poured 4 gallons of methanol into a 55-gallon barrel in the parking lot, sat on top of the barrel, and lit it. The men were in town to participate in the American Sprint Car Series at Skagit Raceway. Apparently, they thought the barrel would slide across the parking lot like a rocket sled, with a tail of flame shooting out, and the 2 rodeo clowns sitting on top waving their caps and hooting. But instead of sliding across the pavement, the barrel blew up beneath them. Who would have thought that 4 gallons of methanol inside a 55-gallon drum would be a bomb? The explosion was so powerful that one end of the barrel landed 120 feet away from the blast site. The 2 men landed in Harborview Medical Center in Washington. Racing folks are smart people with a high degree of mechanical ability. Their work is risky, but this was not a random shop accident. Rather, it was a dangerous and ill-conceived stunt by 2 bored men who were hoping to find some fun in a small town. Instead of fun, one man lost his life and a second survived with a sober lesson on the power of combustion. For social commentary, this was from the New York Times by Ron Lieber, How Debt Can Destroy a Budding Relationship. You know what? Nobody likes unpleasant surprises, but when Allison Brooke Eastman's fiance found out 4 months ago just how high her student loan debt was, he had a particularly strong reaction. He broke off the engagement within 3 days. Miss Eastman said that she had told him early in their relationship that she had over $100,000 of debt, but she said even she didn't know what the true balance was, sort of like a car buyer who focuses only on the 1 monthly payment. She wrote 12 checks a year for about $1,100 each, which was the minimum payment. She didn't focus on the bottom line, she said, because it was so profoundly depressing. But as the couple got closer to their wedding day, she took out all the paperwork and it became clear that her total debt was actually about $170,000. "He accused me of lying," said Miss Eastman, 31, a San Francisco X-ray technician and part-time photographer who had run up much of the balance studying for a bachelor's degree in photography. "But if I was lying to myself, not to him. I really didn't want to know the full amount." At a time when people with no graduate degrees like Miss Eastman often end up 6 figures in the hole, and people getting married for the second time have loads of debt from their earlier lives, it should come as no surprise that debt can bust up engagements. I would say debt and financial problems, bust up most marriages too. Even when couples disclose their debt in detail, it poses a series of challenges. When exactly are you supposed to reveal a debt of this size during the courtship? Earlier than you disclose, say, a chronic illness? Even if a disclosure doesn't render you unmarriageable, tricky questions linger. If one person brings a huge debt to a relationship, who's ultimately responsible for making good on that obligation? And if it's $170,000, isn't the more solvent partner going to resent that debt over time, no matter how early the disclosure comes? After all, it will profoundly affect every financial decision, from buying a home to how many children to have. These were the questions that weighed on Carrie Tidwell, a third-year student at the Medical College of Georgia and an aspiring emergency room doctor. She doesn't worry so much about her ability to pay back her loans. Miss Tidwell, 26, is involved in a serious relationship with Stefan Kroger, an architect who's a native of Australia and living in Vienna. To Europeans who often pay little or nothing towards their university studies, the idea of going deeply into debt to get educated is, well, foreign. Miss Tidwell feels no guilt about the $250,000 in debt she will probably run up, including some from a master's degree she completed in London, where she and Mr. Krogler met. I didn't acquire it because I go out and shop a lot, she said. It's because I'm doing something that I'll love for the rest of my life. Still, if she and Mr. Kroger are going to move in together and get engaged, she wants their financial arrangements to be clear and fair. But how do you define fair when you're bringing $250,000 of debt into a relationship? Lisa B. Peterson, who's a financial planner with Lantern Financial in Boston, specializes in counseling young couples and has heard this story before. About half the people she sees are both bringing significant debt to the relationship, and about a quarter of the others have one person who is pile of student loans. The problem is most couples never get this far in their pre-marriage money talks. One advantage to prenuptial agreements is that they force the issue, even if it doesn't turn the talks into negotiation. At least half the time, people are shocked at what the other person's attitude is, said Susan Winters, a matrimonial lawyer with Bud Larner in Short Hills, New Jersey. You ask how they'd handle it if someone wanted to stay home after having a baby. At the same time, they give completely different answers. Still, all of this raises the question, at what point do you have a moral obligation to disclose your indebtedness during courtship? On the 8th date? When you get to third base? In your eHarmony online dating profile? It's a sliding scale, says Miss Rizal, the Manhattan lawyer. It depends on the person and the nature of the relationship. Miss Winters, the Short Hills divorce lawyer, said it might depend on your definition of a serious relationship. But I wouldn't wait until you were signing leases for apartments or picking out engagement rings. Miss Eachman in San Francisco says she knows that now. What I would have done differently besides bringing a copy of my credit report on the first date, she says with a rueful chuckle, I would have been more responsible. And now for my real estate news from the Wall Street Journal. Banks' plan will drive mortgages. The speed at which house prices fall over the next few months could depend less on mortgage rates and Americans' appetite for home buying than on how banks decide to manage the huge number of foreclosed homes that they own or may take from delinquent borrowers in the near future. Unlike homeowners, banks are often much quicker to slash prices to unload properties quickly. The upshot is, the more homes being sold by lenders, the faster prices tend to fall. Makes sense. The pattern was clear over the last 2 years. Price declines that began 4 years ago accelerated rapidly in 2008 as banks dumped foreclosed properties at fire sale prices. By January 2009, the share of distressed sales had soared to 45% of all sales nationally. It was even higher in hard-hit markets such as Phoenix, according to analysts at Barclays Capital. The home affordable modification program has fallen short of its goals. So far, fewer than 500,000 loans have been modified, below the target of 3 to 4 million. Yet the program served as a closet moratorium, on foreclosures that staunched the flow of bank-owned homes to the market, said Ron Temple, portfolio manager at Lizard Asset Management. The result, the sale of distressed sales fell by November to 25% of home sales and prices stabilized. After rising in the winter, the distress share fell to 22% in June, before bouncing to 33% or 30% in July. The problem is that these measures are wearing off. Demand plunged this summer after tax credits expired, and unsold homes are piling up. More foreclosures could move onto the market as borrowers fall out of the loan modification program. We see the perfect storm brewing with the rising supply and falling demand, said Ivy Zellman, chief executive of research firm Zellman and Associates, and one of the first to warn of trouble 5 years ago. She estimated that distressed sales could account for half of the market by year-end if traditional sales didn't rebound. The market does have some tailwinds. Housing starts are at all-time lows. Banks have hired more staff to manage problem loans, and government entities such as Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae that own a growing share of foreclosures are less likely to deluge the market. The next leg down in prices isn't going to be the foreclosure-induced free fall where you just had inventory coming out of the wazoo, and it was going to be sold one way or the other, said Glenn Kelman, chief executive of Redfin Corporation. All that being said, as I always say, this is the best buyer's market you and I will ever see in our lifetime. If you or anybody you know is looking to take advantage of this market, give us a call. Anywhere in the world we can help. At ERA, we're global. I look forward to hearing from you. And if you think about getting into real estate, give me a call. I'd love to talk to you too. My number is 714-996-3000. This is Duane signing off. Happy trails to you as always. Proud to be an American.